What's up, y'all? Shafe coming at you again today. Um, you know, I've been in a pretty dark place lately. I'm working, by the way, so it might seem why I'm a little bit preoccupied, but I'm going to try to stay on point. I've been in a pretty dark place lately. I'm not going to go into reasons why, but does it really matter why? I'm sure most of you guys can relate, if not all of you guys can relate. A lot of you guys have been in dark places before. Call it depression, call it sadness, call it despair, call it anger, call it whatever you want to call it. Let's call it negativity, right? You got your environment, and they say that the lowest form of human consciousness is to be completely controlled by your environment. Like, your environment dictates everything. Like, you can't rise above anything, right? So that would almost be like an infant, right? If you have an infant and they're too cold, right? They're naked in a cold room. What are they going to do? They're going to cry. If you have an infant who is hungry and they're not getting fed, what are they going to do? They're going to cry. You have an infant that's tired and they're having trouble sleeping, right? Whatever it is like, I can't get what I want right fucking now, so I'm going to go, ah! Right? That's the lowest level of human consciousness, is to be completely dictated by your environment. And those are people that grow up with lower levels of consciousness, they say, who are really they're easy to fuck with, right? And those tend to be the kids that get bullied in school, kids that have thin skin, and who it's fun to get a rise out of them, right? And that's why bullies do it. I mean, that's not the only reason bullies do it, but you can get it, like, somebody who, if you're poking them, and they're just like, fuck you, that's not as fun. But if you poke somebody over and over and they go, right, then, oh, that's really fun. I think it's funny when that happens. So I'm going to fuck with this dude every day, right? So not being able to rise above your environment at all, that's a really low level of consciousness. And they say, this is like Eastern philosophy, Eastern religions, where they talk about levels of consciousness and stuff like that. It's interesting to study that kind of stuff. You don't necessarily have to subscribe to it, but you can study it just to see what they think, right? Just to see what they believe. There's nothing wrong, like if you're a Christian, there's nothing wrong with reading the Quran, or studying Buddhism, or studying Scientology. Religion interests me in the same way that serial killers interest me. Like, for whatever reason, I am infatuated with serial killers. I don't know why, but you name it, man. Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer. Those guys, like, every time there's a special on about one of those guys, like, I'm just like locked in, because I just like, I gotta know what makes this guy tick. Like, what brings you to the point where you can kill somebody and keep parts of them in your apartment and eat them? Like, how does a human being get to that point? But anyway, I'm digressing like I usually do, but my main point is, like, you don't have to become the thing that you're studying, right? You can read the Bible all day long. You can study the Bible, and then you can walk away an atheist, right? People do it all the time. In fact, hold on a second. I'll plug my phone in. In fact, it would interest some of you, if you didn't already know this, it would interest a lot of you to know that many of the Bible scholars that are out there are, in fact, either complete atheists or they're totally agnostic. They're like, I don't know if, you know, like, dude, and when you read the Bible, you know, you can, so much of it is unbelievable, right? Like literally unbelievable. I'm not stupid enough to think that it's a very believable story that Noah built this wooden ship that was as big as 3 football fields or how fucking big it was, and took every animal on the planet with him. And, you know, it's like, look, there are people who they're Bible literalists, and I have friends like that who are Bible literalists. They believe the Adam and Eve story to the letter. They believe that the earth is 6,000 years old. When you ask them stuff like, well, how can we see stars that are billions of light years away, that took billions of years for the light just to get to us? We can see those stars right now. That would tend to make you think that the universe is billions of years old, right? And then they just, I don't know. They give some really interesting reasons why. Well, God figured out a way to be like whatever, you know, like I don't really give a shit. So much of that is above my pay grade. But when I read the Bible, you know, I do it for personal enlightenment. You know, I don't sit there and go, how did Noah get all the animals on the ark? And Adam and Eve, what kind of fruit was it that Adam and Eve ate? Was it an apple or an orange or a pear? Or maybe it was a dragon fruit. That's not why the stories are written. Which tells you that they're allegory, right? Like the stories are written to supposedly illustrate something. And when you have an illustrative story, it is an allegory, right? Once upon a time, there was a book, like there literally are books in the Bible that start off like that, like once upon a time in a land far, far away. You don't believe me? Read the book of Job, J-O-B. Spelled like job, but it's pronounced Job. They say I can't remember how it starts, like a long time ago in the land of Uz, there lived a man named Job. Like, where the fuck is Uz? It's U-Z or Uz, whatever. And scholars are like, there is no such place. It's like Loompa land, right? Oompa Loompas. So the story of Job is about a guy who basically gets the shit kicked out of him in life. He didn't do anything wrong, but he still got the shit kicked out of him. Like his children were killed and everything was taken from him. You know, his house burned down and he lost all his cattle and just like all this horrendous stuff happened to him. And then to make matters worse, he broke out in sores all over his own body. And the way the story goes, and a main reason why I think the story is allegory, is that it didn't really happen, is because it says that Job was a blameless, righteous man. Blameless, meaning sinless, meaning perfect, right? Which tends to directly contradict the Bible, which says nobody's perfect except the Son of God, Jesus, supposedly, right? So Job didn't need a savior because he was perfect, you know, like stuff like that. So anyway, but again, that's not the point. So if we get caught up in that kind of shit, then we try to dissect everything and we miss the point. And the point of the story is Job didn't deserve what he got. All this horrible shit happened to him, and he didn't deserve it. And his friends came to visit him, and they saw him, and they're like, "Holy shit! Like, look what happened to Job." Now, Job was like this rich guy that owned shit tons of land, all these animals. I mean, if you owned a lot of animals back then, that was the shit, right? Today, it would be like owning a fleet of Lamborghinis or something like that, right? You got acres and acres of property. You own a bunch of Lamborghinis. You got a couple online businesses that are doing really well. You got 10 million YouTube subscribers, whatever. That was Job, right? Job was like the Mr. Beast of the Middle East back in the day. He had money to burn. And then he lost it all. And it wasn't like he gambled it and lost it all, or he did something foolish and lost it all. It's like a tornado hit the house that his family was in, and the house fell and crushed his whole family. A bunch of thieves came and stole all of his animals, and all that, and then he got sores that broke out all over his body. And so his friends came to visit him, and they were like, wow, like they were like sort of like mourning with him, weeping with him, crying with him, trying to like be there for him. But then they started talking to him, and they were like, Job, you must have done something wrong. You must have done something to deserve this. And Job's like, no, I didn't do anything to deserve this. And the friends are like, maybe you did it accidentally and you didn't know it, but you definitely did something to deserve this. You sinned against the Lord, blah, blah. And Job is like, no, I'm telling you, I did not do anything to deserve this, And so we're meant to take the story at face value as far as that Job was telling the truth, not take it at face value as if it really happened, but we're to take the story at face value, Job's word at face value, that Job didn't do anything to deserve what was happening to him. And then at the end of the book, God speaks up, and God is basically like, no, Job, you did not do it. You did not do anything to deserve this, but I can do whatever I want. And if I want to let your family die, I'm going to let your family die. And if I want to let all of your oxen get stolen, I'm going to let your oxen get stolen. And if I'm going to let sores break out in your body, I am the Lord. I will do what I want to do. Not like I take pleasure in doing bad things. Not that kind of, I'm going to do what I want to do, but the sort of like, who are you to question my sovereignty? Like I'm in charge of everything. What I say goes. And if you don't like it, I know you don't like it, by the way, because I'm God, right? I'm all knowing. I'm playing the part of God right now. I'm all knowing. I know you don't like it, but I'm trying to get you to understand that I'm not a push button God. I'm not a God who, if you do X, I will do Y. If you do A, I will do B. If you say please, I will say okay. I'm not that kind of God. I'm the kind of God who does what he does. And I have my reasons. And just because you don't understand my reasons does not mean that I'm wrong. So in other words, this guitar pick right here, if I'm God and I declare this guitar pick to be yellow instead of blue, guess what? This color is now yellow because I'm God and what I say goes. I created everything. I created the color, what you thought the color yellow was. Why can't I change it to this if I want? I'm God. I can do what I please. That's a very interesting concept. Like, we don't need to understand why shit is happening to us. And not only do we not need to understand it, we won't understand it. And then the other book in the Bible, which is really unfortunately misinterpreted a lot because I've read different interpretations on it, is the book of Ecclesiastes. If you read the New International Version, the NIV, in the book of Ecclesiastes, you'll see the word meaningless written over and over and over and over and over again. I think it's used, I don't know, 20 something times or something. Meaningless, meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Everything on this earth is meaningless. You know, like the writer of Ecclesiastes is basically like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do. You are going to die. You can be the most righteous, upright, blameless, nicest, give away all your money to the poor. Your fate is the same. In fact, it might even be worse than the scumbag criminal. You're both going to die. You're both going to die. Therefore, everything you do, you can't take anything you have accomplished with you to the grave. And the book of Ecclesiastes even questions whether or not there's an afterlife. I think that's amazing that there's a book in the Bible that questions if there's an afterlife. The guy who writes Ecclesiastes, people say Solomon wrote it, says, how do we know if there's an afterlife? How do we know now, granted, this was thousands of years before Jesus came, and Jesus said that there was an afterlife, and there were other books in the Bible that said that there was an afterlife, but this book says, how do we know? You don't know. You've never been there. And that's what I like about it, right? Like, it's very, very honest. But meaningless is actually a different interpretation than what the Hebrew, like the Bible was written in Hebrew, especially the Old Testament. So Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic. Greek and Aramaic are like in the New Testament, stuff like that. But Hebrew is what all of the Old Testament is written in. And the name that the writer of Ecclesiastes gives to the world and to life and everything is Hevel. 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 And if you look it up, the word Hevel it means like smoke or mist, something you try to grasp. But like if you try to grab smoke, can you grab it? No, it slips through your fingers and goes where it's going to go. It's like, it's something that you can't hold on to. And not only like that's one way to interpret it. And another, what they say is the best, Bible scholars say the best way to interpret the word Hevel is absurd. Absurd. What does the word absurd mean to us? Absurd is like completely ridiculous. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, if I decided to take all my clothes off and paint my penis green and run down the street singing Mary Had a Little Lamb and knocking on everybody's door and taking a shit on people's lawns, that would be one of the most absurd things that I could possibly do. Right? I'm sure you guys could think of other things, but like, doesn't make any sense at all. And that's what the writer of Ecclesiastes basically says. Like, life is this life that we live in, it's absurd. It's not just hard. It's not just confusing. It's absurd. And who wouldn't agree with that? I mean, if you look at Jewish children during the Holocaust who one day they're eating dinner with their parents and the next day they're being pulled into a gas chamber by a bunch of Nazis, or worse yet, they're being pulled into an operation room and just, getting stuck with knives and basically getting operated on while they're awake. Surgery without anesthesia is what the Nazis used to like to do to Jews. The most horrific, horrendous, ridiculous stuff you could possibly imagine. Let's see what happens if we take a spoon and we stick it inside somebody and just literally pluck their eyeball out. Let's see what happens. Okay, go get a Jew and bring him over here, and we're gonna strap him down, and I'm gonna see what happens. Like, here, ooh, look at the way he's reacting when you pluck his eyeball out. Like, that's the kind of shit they would do. Mind numbing. It's enough to make you think that we don't have to go to hell. Like, we're already there. We're already there. We're in hell right now. What's more hellish than that? What's more hellish than being separated from your parents as a child, being brought into Auschwitz, and not just being killed right away, like being tortured, maimed, operated on while you're fully conscious, no pain meds, no nothing, having who knows what else, needles stuck in your eyeballs, I don't know, fall into the hands of a serial killer who likes to torture his prey before he kills him, be hiking in the woods and get in between a grizzly and her cubs, right? Accidentally. And then the grizzly bear just tears you to pieces and eats you while you're still alive screaming. I'm not saying this kind of thing happens all the time, every day. It happens enough, though, for us to understand that it could happen to us and it could happen to our kids. And so Ecclesiastes says that life is absurd. Like, our situation right now is absurd. It's absurd. You can, again, you can be the nicest person in the entire world, be willing to give your shirt off your back to somebody, and still get raped and murdered and beheaded or whatever. There's no rhyme or reason to any of it, right? And the funny thing that I like most about religious people in general, I don't care if you're Christian, Muslim, Jew, Scientologist, whatever you are, you actually think that you have some kind of special favorite status with God. His angels are surrounding you. He won't let anything bad happen to you. I can go anywhere. I can go into the worst neighborhood. I can go into the jungle. I can go in there. God's angels are surrounding me, man. If God wants me to get this done, he's going to let me get it. I mean, I guess to a degree that's faithfulness, but you could say, yeah, if God wants me to go into this situation unharmed, then I will not be harmed. But maybe God doesn't have that plan for you. Maybe God has it planned for you that you go in there and you get eaten by a jaguar. The arrogance of human beings to claim they know what God has in store for them. That's what I find amusing. That's what I find amusing. And that's what gets you into trouble. And that's what I was raised on, I was raised on thinking that you can make sense out of this world by saying, well, if you love God, then, nothing bad's going to happen to you. And then a bunch of bad shit happens to you. And then as a kid, you say, well, maybe it's because I didn't love God. Maybe that's why. I mean, it's like psychological torture, like up is down, left is right. Like you cannot put those kinds of thoughts into your children's heads because it really fucks them up for life. Or it fucks them up for a long time, and it gets them into a situation where they don't know what to believe anymore. But the Bible itself says that you shouldn't think that way. The Bible itself says that this life that we're living, this world that we're in right now, is absurd. In other words, there's no rhyme or reason to it. The Bible even says that. I'd say the only caveat to that is that's our perception, and that's as far as our perception will ever be able to go, is that everything is absurd and that there's no telling what tomorrow brings. There's no telling when or how you will die, but the certain thing is that you will die. Not only that, but you'll also be forgotten. You say, well, not me, man. I'm one of the presidents of the United States. Everybody's going to remember me for centuries, millennia. Yeah, right. Really? Who was the emperor of the Byzantine Empire back in whatever, 1500 BC, whenever that shit was? Nobody knows who that was. I mean, you gotta look the motherfucker up, and then you probably can't even pronounce his name. And then you got to be like, well, scholars think that this was the person, but they're not 100% sure. Nobody's going to be remembered. 1,000,000 years from now, nobody's going to be remembered. Nobody. Not me, not you. And all the work that we're doing right now is really for nothing, except to sort of entertain us right now. That's what our work is for. To keep it going, right? I work on my computer so that they can give me money so that I can buy food and that I can have a roof over my head. And why do I have all that? So that I can keep working. So you work to live, and then you live to work, and then you work to live, and then you live to work. That's what you do. And then you die. Isn't that absurd enough? That's fucking absurd. Why should I have to do that? You know, that's why people kill themselves, because they come to the conclusion that life is it's absurd. It's pointless. It's absurd. Most people don't kill themselves because, you know, they either don't get to that point in depression, or if they do get to that point in depression, they say, well, I can't do this to myself because of the people who are relying on me. I would break my mother's heart. I would leave my children fatherless or motherless or whatever if I killed myself. So I'll find a reason to go on. Some people get over that and they do it anyway. My brother's brother-in-law, that guy's father committed suicide about, I don't know, I want to say maybe 10 years ago. Left his grandchildren, left his wife, left his kids, just hung himself, man. And my brother was talking about, oh, that's so selfish. He's so selfish. You have no right to do that. I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, it's selfish. Yeah. Selfish, I'll give you that. No right to do it, though? Of course you have a right to do it. It's your life. You don't have a right to end your own life? Of course you do. Of course you do. It's selfish. It's foolish. People do selfish and foolish things all the time. You can't say that you don't have a right to do it, though. What does that even mean? You have no right. People do things all the time, and other people say, you had no right to do that. What does that mean? They did it. Whether they had a right to do it, they still did it. It's funny what we say. Kind of stuff that we say. I don't know, like maybe it just makes us feel better when we say stuff like that. Like, he had no right to talk to me like that. He had no right. Well, he did. He did it. He talked to you that way. Whether you had a right to do it. What does that matter if you had a right to do it or not? Who in their right mind like wants to do something, right? They want to do something and they really want to do it. Like they're totally compelled to do this, whatever this thing is. But then they go, you know what? I can't though. I can't. Why not? Why can't you? Because I don't have a right to do it. If I had a right to do it, I would totally do it, but I have no right to do that, so I won't do that.